Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. This is the fourth episode so far of the Daily Takeaway, talking about storms and the weather. So, is anyone out there that actually enjoys the weather? Because for me, I don't like crappy weather, as in rain, but I do like thunderstorms. I do like hurricanes and severe things. That's the sort of stuff I like. The rain is just boring. Heavy rain, not so boring. Hail, even less boring. Large hail that's 8 inches across that could kill you falling at 90 miles an hour. Scary, but cool. So I'm somebody that's been interested in thunderstorms ever since I was a little boy. I think at the age of 7, I was fostered by a foster family, and we arrived at their family, this husband and wife couple, um, during Easter. So we had the spring showers kicking off, and a thunderstorm came rolling over. And of course, when you're a kid, you're sort of wary around loud noises, I guess. And my foster father just said, don't be afraid. It's just nature's way of unwinding. And ever since that day, I had a fascination with thunderstorms in particular. Of course, the thunderstorms we get in the UK are just rubbish compared to the thunderstorms other countries get, such as the United States, even Canada, mainland Europe, South Africa, Australia, Bangladesh, Indonesia. Like they get, even Florida, they get daily thunderstorms or seasonal thunderstorms, which just make our thunderstorms look like little children. So there's you being the man mountain himself, Hathor Bjornsson, the big, and then you're small. That's basically what I like the metaphor I use for like British weather. So yeah, ever since I was about 7 years old, I've had a fascination with thunderstorms. Most women I ever meet don't like thunderstorms, and it seems to come from the fact that they don't like the thunder, which is one of my favorite parts of a thunderstorm. There's just the deep boom of a thunderclap, and they also don't like lightning, which is something I don't like either, because it's frightening, it's unpredictable, you don't know where it's going to strike, and it can potentially kill you. But for the sound, it could potentially make you go deaf if it's loud enough, but the sound itself isn't really going to kill you. So there's no reason to be afraid of thunder. And have you ever listened to a thunderstorm once? Or had a thunderstorm roll over? And sometimes, rarely, you get a thunderclap that's so deep and heavy and bassy that it sets off car alarms, it shakes the house, it shakes your bones, the sky feels like, God's bowling or something. So just a heavy boom. And that is most likely a positive lightning strike, because you can have two different types of lightning. The more common lightning is negatively charged, which is from the base of the thunderstorm. A positive lightning strike occurs from the very top of a thunderstorm, and so because of that, the lightning strike itself, the positive lightning strike, is about 10 times longer and therefore 10 times more powerful than a negative lightning strike. It carries more energy, it lasts 10 times longer, so it can heat the air up more. So the resulting thunderclap that you hear from that positive lightning strike is just like negative lightning strike on steroids. It's just more. Love hearing those. Very rare. One in 9 or 1 in 10 lightning strikes is a positive lightning strike. positive lightning strikes seem to be the cause of a phenomenon that astronauts had seen, upper atmospheric lightning, and they come in the form of I think it's red sprites and blue jets. These are amazing photographs. If you Google red sprites and blue jets, you get these photographs of these amazing sort of upward moving lightning strikes from the tops of thunderstorms right up into the upper atmosphere. So if I enable my webcam for those viewers who are watching, are we not meant to have a welcome screen? Absolutely not. None of you are welcome. What are you talking about? So these photographs here are you rarely ever see these when you're really close to a thunderstorm. You can't see them because they're happening high above the clouds. But these thunderstorms in this photograph here from Stephen Hummel, the thunderstorms are well over the horizon at this point, and we're just looking at the anvil, the very top of the thunderstorm. And when you get a positive lightning strike, because there's so much energy released from the very tops of the thunderstorms, there's a weird sort of effect where the lightning also goes up from the top. And astronauts had first seen this, and they didn't know what they were looking at. And then some people started taking photographs and noticing these weird sort of effects on at the top of these clouds. So here in this photograph specifically that we are watching on stream, the thunderstorm is well over the horizon. It's long gone. It's not even visible. But the positive lightning strikes, the red sprites and blue jets, in this case the red sprites, are visible because it's so high up in the sky. The thunderstorm there, for it to be over the horizon completely, would be, 100, maybe 100 miles away. And this is one of the most intriguing things about thunderstorms, is these red sprites and blue jets. I've been privileged enough to actually go storm chasing before. I haven't seen red sprites and blue jets, unfortunately, but I have seen tornadoes. I have seen waterspouts, dust devils, and all manner of things. Hail and gorilla hail. That's the difference. Here in the UK, we do get hail, and sometimes we hear tink 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 as the hail is hitting the window. But in America, they get things called gorilla hail, and gorilla hail is unlike anything else we see in the UK. This stuff can kill you. Here's Reed Timmer. Here's somebody that I follow. Reed Timmer is an extreme meteorologist. He storm chases and so forth. Here's Reed Timmer again with his windscreen completely smashed due to gorilla hail in an episode of his storm chase series in 2020. This is what a car looks like. Reed Timmer again after gorilla hail. Dangerous stuff. Really dangerous stuff. And you got to feel for the wildlife that are out in the fields when hail this large is falling at 90 miles an hour, and if that hits you, you're dead. You're either dead, have brain damage, broken bones, or whatever. This stuff can weigh up to like several pounds, I presume. So yeah, so both thunderstorms, beautiful but scary and deadly, and gorilla hail is definitely one of the things I'd be most frightened of. Fortunately, though, when you're dealing with hail, there are sometimes good indicators that hail is on the way, and it's when the sky turns green, thunderstorm, green sky. These are false color images for sure, because they're never this green. But when there's a large hail core in a thunderstorm, sunlight bounces through the hail and it starts to turn it from a slight bluish color into a greenish color, because it's slowing it down more. And as wavelengths of ultraviolet light start slowing down, they start going into the blue end of the spectrum. And if they're slowed down even more than just sky, water vapor word, the green is an indication that there's objects in the air that are slowing down the refraction of light enough to turn the sky green. And that's the first warning sign that large hail is on the way. And if you are near a thunderstorm and you do see the sky turning a slight shade of green, not these shades of green. I mean, this is false color image. This is high vibrancy. It's not. It doesn't really look that way. But there are subtle shades of green in other photographs where the core of the storm has a greenish hue to it. When you see that, you should really, if it's nearby, you should definitely head for cover, because it can kill you. And then of course you've got tornadoes, which is my favorite thing to do with the weather. It's the sting in the tail of a thunderstorm. It's been nicknamed, like the devil's finger or the devil's tail or God's finger or whatever it is, like silly names like that. And all thunderstorms can produce tornadoes. They are capable if the environment, the atmospheric environment, is conducive for tornadic development. What I mean by that is if the currents, the air conditions, the wind direction, the humidity, the instability, and so on are right, you can get tornadoes, and we can get them in the UK, and often the UK boasts that we have the most tornadoes per square mile of any country in the world, which may be true because we're a small country and population density is higher. There are a lot of people everywhere, so there are a lot of people who can see them, these storms, to report them. But in the United States, if you're not on the East Coast or the West Coast, populations in between are really sparse. There's nobody about. And I've gone storm chasing now, and you can go 50 miles before you see anything, before you see anyone, other than, a gas station in the middle of nowhere where there's a house nearby the gas station, because they live there, because driving to work would be a nightmare. So they literally live where they work. And gas stops along the way for people at road trips. So it's, convenience stores, have a rest stop. And it's usually just people's houses that they've converted into, a point of interest. So I'm going to quickly leave you with a song to play, because I quickly need to go get my food, it should have already been here, but I've been delayed today because I've been dealing with some copyright issues. So I'm going to leave you with some music quickly, some non-copyright music, and I will be right back. Non-copyright music, because again, getting copyright stricken is a bit annoying. So I'm going to leave you this no copyright music, and I shall be right back. Give me 5 minutes, and I'll be right back. Thank you everyone for waiting. It's actually my lunchtime, so I'll try to talk to you while I eat. But what was I saying? Oh yes, tornadoes in the UK. The UK boasting quite frequently actually that we get more tornadoes per square mile than the United States, which may be true because our land area is a lot smaller than the Americas, but America gets way more tornadoes than we do. Way more. It's just no one's around to see them. And having storm chased in the US, I know that you can drive for thousands of miles to go and see these storms, and along the way you'll pass maybe one or two areas where you can eat and drink, make a phone call, get cell phone reception, all of these things. So, but it is exciting. It is exciting seeing these storms. Now I'm somebody that loves tornadoes, but I'd only ever seen tornadoes in books and in videos. You know, seeing something, a funnel cloud, up close and personal, it's a reality check. It's now no longer in the books. It's now in front of you, and you're faced with Mother Nature's raw power. And it intimidated the hell out of me. It scared me. Even though I love, like, every part of my body loves this sort of stuff. But it scared me. And if it can scare me, then I imagine it, it scares a lot of people. Just being presented with this churning mass of air that, if you're caught up in it, could well kill you. Usually, though, a tornado doesn't kill you directly. Like the tornado itself, what the tornado is made of, doesn't kill you. Because it's just air spinning around. But it's the effect that air has on houses, on the environment. It can churn up the house, break it up, so every little piece of that house that's airborne now becomes an airborne missile. And that airborne missile can puncture you, can shred you, it's like shrapnel essentially, and you'll just be cut up by shrapnel. And if you're lifted aloft in the air by the upward motion, then you can be thrown 10 feet, 100 feet. You could be carried for miles potentially. And there are videos out there of 18-wheel transporters just being picked up like they're Lego toys by tornadoes. And these tornadoes that are doing this are small. They look tiny. And they're picking up freight trains, trucks, and just picking them up in the air and throwing them 10 feet, 100 feet, far away. And it's scary. It really is. Excuse me while I sneeze. Allergies. Suddenly bad this week. Scary. And I storm chased over the United States, where we crisscrossed Texas, Oklahoma, and Kansas. The tornado that we missed, the big tornado that we missed by 3 days, tore through Oklahoma, downtown Oklahoma, and destroyed the state fair. It wasn't on the ground for very long, but it was on the ground long enough to cause a lot of damage. It didn't claim any lives, so that's good. I've got some interesting facts for you that I remember, though. I'm just going to mute my microphone while I blow my nose. 1 second. As I said, allergies. Some interesting facts. How long, listeners, do you think the longest lightning strike ever recorded is. And I don't mean the longest as in how long it was in the atmosphere for, how long it lasted for, how long the path was from origin to the tip, like how long. Well, to give you an idea, if you know the state of Oklahoma, so if I get a map up right now, and I show you the state of Oklahoma, and we measure from one side to the other, we measure the distance from the west coast of west of Oklahoma City, right on the border of Texas and Oklahoma. This is called the Texas Panhandle, Amarillo, Texas. So we're on the border of Texas and Oklahoma, west side, to Fort Smith, which is Arkansas side of Oklahoma. So we go all the way to there. There was a lightning strike that was about 250 miles long, which is almost the entire length of Oklahoma City. Now, if you live in the UK, for example, then 250 miles would be from London to beyond Sheffield, beyond Leeds, would be all the way from London to Newcastle. That's a long journey. So if you're in Paris, for example, and you want to measure that distance, then we're looking at a distance from Paris to the Swiss Alps, just near to the Swiss Alps. If we're in the southern Paris, you're even closer. Like, it's crazy. Or Paris to Lyon, a long way. Even we could even say Paris to Belgium. Yes, Paris to Brussels, longer than that. Antwerp, longer than that. Paris to Cologne. That's how long this lightning strike was. That's the longest. So here's some other tornado facts. Largest tornado in width. Now, you think of a tornado, and we see them in the UK, is a little like rat's tail, a little rope, tiny little thing. Again, just goes to show you how big or how small the tornadoes are in the UK. But the largest tornado ever recorded was on the 31st of May, 2013, in El Reno, Oklahoma, where a tornado measured 2.6 miles in diameter. 2.6 miles. The problem with that tornado was the wind. A tornado is measured by its wind field. Essentially, it's the effects of the tornado are measured up to its wind field, which is just the area of rotation, basically, underneath the cloud. And this area of rotation was 2.6 miles wide. Trouble is with this particular tornado is that the wind field itself didn't have any condensation funnel, which means that it wasn't visible to the naked eye. There was a cone, there was a tornado visible in the center, but it was much, much smaller than it as a whole. It was like a subvortice. A subvortice is just like you have a parent tornado, parent circulation, and sometimes within that parent circulation, you can get smaller looking tornadoes within it. Well, this 2.6 mile wide tornado had a smaller tornado in it, and people thought that was the main thing. They thought that smaller tornado was the main one, and not realizing that they were inside the main tornado or were heading towards it and didn't realize. And a lot of storm chasers got caught up in it and injured, and 3 of them were killed. And the 3 that were killed were widely regarded as the safest of the safe. They always kept their distance, and they were fooled by it too. And it's now a lesson to storm chasers that, you've got to be more cautious. Storm chasers are taking much more risks these days because of social media, and you want to get impressive video, you want to get impressive shots and photographs and things like that. That they are willing to risk their lives for the footage. It says here Tim Samaras was one of these storm chasers. He pioneered photography in that he captured high speed camera footage of lightning strikes, and the lightning strikes that he photographed taught the world how lightning actually works. He died, unfortunately, in that El Nino tornado with his son and longtime colleague. And it just goes to show you, it doesn't matter who you are, how smart you are, how knowledgeable you are, that these things can happen. So yeah, that was 2.6 miles. It's the largest tornado ever recorded. The fastest tornado ever recorded, if memory serves, was on May 3rd, 1999. May 3rd, 1999 tornado, which again was in the same area. It was in Oklahoma. It almost followed the same path as the 1999 tornado. This is a photograph of the tornado. This is what's known as a wedge. A wedge tornado is a tornado that is wider than it is tall. A bit like a wedge that you put under a door or something like that. Just a big wedge of cheese. And tornadoes like this, large like this, are very rare. This happened to be an F5 tornado, an EF5 tornado. I'll get you some statistics. It was rated F5, but since then the ratings have changed, and the ratings changed because scientists incorrectly assumed that they basically overestimated the speed in which a tornado would need to have to destroy a house. And ratings for tornadoes are based on how much they destroy, what they destroy, what sort of building was destroyed when it was hit. So if it was a bricked house and not just a wooden, caravan or something, or caravan park, or trailer park, if it was a big building, concrete building with brick walls, like a hospital or something, and part of that hospital is completely destroyed, then that tells the scientists that the tornado had enough speed to basically damage the best buildings we have. So then that would get the highest rating. But what if that same tornado that hit that hospital, just went calmly across a field in the American Midwest? What would happen? Well, because that tornado probably ripped up some fences and some trees, it would get a very, very low rating, even though it could be a world record tornado and it's the strongest anyone has ever seen in their lives. Because it didn't destroy anything, it's given a very low rating. So it's a bit silly in that sense, but it's more consistent in that we rate the tornado on the damage that it produces, not its winds. It's just, if the tornado happens to be harmless and not hit anything, then we assume that the rating is lowest. The statistic for an EF5 tornado is 1 in 100 thunderstorms produce a tornado, and 1 in 100 tornadoes are an EF5. It is believed, if we go to the list of EF5 tornadoes, the world hasn't seen an EF5 tornado in some time now. The last time an EF5 tornado was witnessed, let's just double check that these are confirmed. These are possible. Okay. Confirmed EF5 tornadoes, the most powerful tornadoes ever. Official EF5s. The last one was seen 9 years ago. And that was May 20th. So they are extremely rare. They have a list of possible EF5s, and that was 2016. So lower estimate is that it was 6 years ago that the biggest was ever seen. Well, the highest rated. But 8 years officially. And so they are extremely rare. So as a storm chaser, you can spend your entire life hunting for an EF5 and never see one. I've never seen one. I've only seen very small tornadoes. It would be amazing to come across a large tornado. If you want to know about thunderstorms, there are several different types of thunderstorms. During the day here in the UK and Florida and other humid areas, you get something called a pulse thunderstorm. And a pulse thunderstorm is born from the humidity rising due to daily sunlight heating the ground and causing air to rise. And then as the humidity rises, you get these thunderstorms that come up in the early afternoon to late afternoon, and those are known as pulse. They're very short-lived. They have a very brief period of maturing and intensification, about 20 minutes, and then the storm dies down and drifts off onto the horizon and dies down or dissipates. You can have supercells. Supercells are just thunderstorms, but they're named supercells because they have an updraft, which is this rapidly rising air that's consistent and lasts for more than 20 minutes. So if a thunderstorm has a consistent updraft that lasts for more than 20 minutes, it's more likely to produce a tornado that way, because the mechanism to produce a tornado is present for a longer period of time, giving it more chance to produce one. Again, in the UK and all over the world, tornadoes are possible except for Antarctica, I believe. It all depends on how intense the updraft is. There are a couple of different types of thunderstorm. You can have squall lines. A squall line, if I get you a picture for you, a squall line is a line of thunderstorms, literally a long line. This is a weather radar picture that looks to be, I'm not sure what country that, it's the United States, but I'm not sure what state. The red is heavy rainfall and precipitation with some purple. Oranges and yellows slightly less, green even less, and blue is just light rain, or just basically moisture droplets in the air. And so sometimes you can have a thunderstorm that will bow out, and it will bow out and produce a long line that can be hundreds of miles long after a while of just thunderstorms, and they produce straight line winds. They just thrust through and just tear across a state and cause a lot of straight line damage. They'll knock down your fences. They'll do that, but they won't necessarily have tornadoes in them, because the squall line is so messy. Wind from different areas of these thunderstorms, they're all embedded. All of these thunderstorms are all embedded next to one another, and they all interact with one another, and they all interfere with one another. A supercell is often isolated, like this one up here. If you're looking at the stream right now, this here is isolated from the main squall. So this could produce a tornado because it's not being interfered with any other storm. Same thing up here. This could also, near Connorsville, produce a tornado if it becomes severe enough because it's ahead of the squall line, and therefore outflow and inflow from all of the storms next to you isn't interfering with you. You can sort of nudge your elbows out and get space. Nudge your elbows out, get space, and be free to produce a tornado. Sometimes you can have a supercell embedded in a squall line, but for weather experts and weather spotters and the National Weather Service in the United States, it's very difficult for them to visually identify any of this. So they rely on a multiple radar. One of them is velocity radar. And velocity radar just basically sends out a beam, like a normal beam, to measure the how big the droplets are in the atmosphere. Velocity radar is the same sort of thing, but this time it when the signals come back, it's telling the radar what direction and what movement those droplets in the atmosphere have. And red means the droplets are going away from you, so they're slower. And green means, greens and blues mean they're coming towards the radar. It's called relative Doppler beaming or something like that. Same thing happens in space and astrophysics when they look at galaxies that are moving away from you, or away from us. They are shifted red. And when galaxies and objects and stars are moving towards us, they're shifted towards the blue end of the spectrum. Same thing going on here with the velocity radar, is that the droplets are slower, so they appear red because they're moving away from you, and green because they're going towards. Now, if you get an area of red and green next to one another, that you can then deduce that one side of a circle is moving away from the radar. So if I take this picture, if I copy this image and I load up Photoshop, and I'll show you exactly what is going on, I can draw you what I'm thinking just to teach. So if I copy this image, so here we have the radar. I'm going to write in white. We'll do like 12. Let me do this quickly. Change the pen. The radar here is somewhere off the screen. The center of the radar is off the image. And you can tell this because there are tiny little squares, these tiny little segments that are sort of concentric circles. And they get wider and larger towards. So you can tell just from this angle, just from the bowing, that the radar is way off to the right. So now we know that the radar is way off to the right. If I leave this, we can see that then you've got air moving away, because this area here is all red, and very intense red down near Joplin. So if we assume that, and then you've got green is everything moving towards the storm, and then you've got two areas here that are side by side, red and blue. This is what's known as a vorticity couplet, which means there's a vortex in here that's spinning here. And the changes in color from greens to teal to the blues, and from dark reds into oranges into yellows, will tell you that it's moving away extremely quickly. And you get a vorticity couplet where the tight area side by side will tell you that there's a large tornado just outside the city of Joplin. And the computers can pick this up. The computers will pick up any adjacent colors. If there's one green and one red, then it'll look at that system and see if there's a large area of rotation, and it'll go through the different heights of the thunderstorm to determine whether or not there is a vorticity couplet or a tornado vortex signature. Hey, Sennades. So Joplin, there is a video of the Joplin tornado, and if you ever want to see a video of the weather being mean and the weather being like a beast, like an actual physical vicious beast and mean, I would watch, if you're curious and you have the stomach for it, watch the Joplin tornado video on YouTube. I can get that for you now, and I can post this in chat. But if you don't like the sort of aftermath of destruction and potential death and seeing people's homes being completely destroyed and, you know, homeless dogs coming out scared because their parents, its owners are dead, people coming across dead bodies, then you won't want to watch this. But there is a video by a storm chaser who watched and tried to warn the police that a tornado was coming, and there was a documentary based on this very tornado that destroyed the town of Joplin, and it was in EF5, and when it hit Joplin, it's just stuff in the air everywhere, and you can't see anything because it's like, it's terrible. It's a tough watch, but it'll give you an idea of just how powerful Mother Nature can be. I love that. It's one of my personal favorite videos because he goes to a police car at an intersection, rolls down his window and says, "You need to get out of here now. You need to warn people now. This tornado is going to come down right here," because he knew the town of Joplin was in danger before anybody else did, and people were panicking. People knew a thunderstorm was coming, and the skies were getting dark, and thunder was increasing, and the lightning was increasing, but nobody knew a tornado was going to be on the way. And he tried warning the town. The police officer said over the radio when he talked to his dispatchers, "I've just had a storm chaser come up and say there's going to be a tornado." But they didn't believe him. They didn't put the town on alert. And as a result, a lot of people died. And people rely on tornado warnings for their warning. And a tornado warning is a siren, an old World War II bomb raid siren that they would sound when the Germans would come along and bomb. And they would just send out a wail like that. And people in America rely on that noise for their warnings. Those warnings literally are like 5 minutes. 5 minutes. They start wailing and like, "Oh, there's a tornado." Can you imagine the panic in 5 minutes when they know that there's a tornado on the way because of the sirens, and all try to leave town all at the same time? Gridlock, panic, traffic jams, panic, people screaming, panic, tornado comes into town, more panic, and it just kills everybody because nobody can go anywhere. And they shouldn't be relying on the old system that's really unreliable. Now the Weather Service in the United States and local weather channels in the United States have the authority to cut off the local programming. It doesn't matter what it is. They could cut off the president. They have total authority to suspend any and every TV show on that network in that state, to tell people in a particularly dangerous situation that a tornado is on the way, and if you don't listen to us, you will die. So they are taking strides now. I think it's pretty cool that the Weather Service can be like, "Yeah, sorry, Mr. President, but we're taking over." I think a presidential broadcast would probably top the weather broadcast, but yeah, I think the weather broadcast can basically take charge over every other television channel. So they'll interrupt and say, "A large and damaging tornado is traveling towards so-and-so. If you're in these polygons," that's what they use now. They use things called polygons, which is, if you know anything about shapes and stuff, it's just a geometrical shape. and they'll have polygons that will look a bit like this, where it's an area where they've issued a warning. And if you're in that polygon at that time, then you are at risk of this hitting you. It may miss you by several miles, but most phones now will have an app on their phone, or they're encouraged to have an app on their phone, that if you're in a polygon, it will alert you, and it will say, you are in the path of a dangerous tornado, seek shelter now. And the warning time for those polygons are usually like 15 minutes, around about 15 minutes. And what scientists are trying to achieve is called lead time. And lead time back in like the 70s, 80s, and 90s was a couple of minutes, because the science with storm chasing was scientists and weather chasers only knew a tornado was on the ground by being able to see it. And only then would people know that there was a tornado. Satellites started going up, so then they could start seeing images like this, and then they'd know that this velocity couplet on the right here is indicative of a tornado, so then they would give warnings to people in Joplin and other towns. So satellites increased that warning time from, a couple of minutes to maybe 5 to 10 minutes. But you still need more time, because a tornado can form within minutes, within seconds sometimes. There are videos on YouTube of a tornado tearing through town, and then within the space of about 1 to 2 seconds completely disappear. And you can go from clear sky to a raging thunderstorm in about 20 minutes. And the reason for that is something called CAPE. And CAPE is, I'm going to get it for you because I always forget. It's something to do with atmospheric potential energy. I think it's convective atmospheric potential energy, but don't quote me on that. Americans love their definitions. I can't seem to search at the moment. Convective available potential energy, excuse me, is the amount of fuel available to developing thunderstorms. CAPE, essentially, you'll have CAPE and CAP. CAP is, if you imagine the sky just being like a bath, for example, and most weather that we have is in the stratosphere, I believe, stratospheric weather. Stratosphere. I can't remember. I think it's stratospheric weather, yeah. No, sorry, I do apologize. It's tropospheric weather. And the stratosphere is above that. If you imagine an upside-down bath in the sky, and the troposphere is the bath water, and then above that, but in the bath would be below, you have a plug hole. That plug hole is the stratosphere. Now, sometimes you can have a layer of air. You can have, like fog, for example, is like a temperature inversion. It's a layer of air that's stuck below the ground that's colder than the air above it, so we get fog. A bit like that, but you can have warm, moist air close to the ground, and above that you'll have a layer of dry air. And that dry air prevents any moisture from punching through into the higher troposphere and expanding and becoming a thunderstorm. So throughout the day in the United States, through heating of the sun, thunderstorms will try to grow, and they'll keep expanding and growing and towering, and they're chipping away at that dry air layer above. And sometimes if that dry air layer above is too thick, then you won't get any thunderstorms that day. Nothing will happen. But if it's just thick enough to be able to break in the mid-afternoon, so the thunderstorms are chipping away and weakening that layer of dry air, they can punch through a hole. They can literally punch through and make a little hole. And all of the moisture below will suddenly start pouring through that plug hole, which is the metaphor for the bath I was talking about, will pour through that plug hole and become a raging thunderstorm within minutes. Within like 10 to 15 minutes, you can go from just a towering cumulus, which is just a type of cloud, by the way, to a fully fledged maturing thunderstorm within like 15 minutes. You can go from clear sky to thunderstorm in a quarter of an hour. There are time-lapse supercell, like cap breaking or something. Breaking the cap time-lapse. So here is a great example provided by Weather JT of this year. What we're looking at here is a lot of cumulus clouds, towering cumulus clouds, and on a particularly stormy day, or on a day that all of the ingredients are there to produce supercells. You need you need moisture. You need 4 things for tornadoes to form and thunderstorms to form: moisture, instability, lift, and wind shear. Moisture is exactly what it sounds like. It's just water droplets in the atmosphere. Instability is essentially how stable the air is, and warm air, rising air, is unstable. Cool, stable air that isn't going anywhere, isn't rising, is stable. So you need moisture, instability, rising air, lift, which is a mechanism to begin that process of rising, to begin to trigger the mechanism for all of that moisture to rise, and usually that's sunlight. So sunlight will heat the earth and cause air, warm it, cause warm air to rise, pushing the moisture up, blah. So you've got moisture, instability, rising air, lift, which is you can't have instability without lift, so you need the lift first, so the day needs to warm up, then you start getting more unstable air, and then wind shear. Wind shear is basically the changing wind direction with height. Because thunderstorms are a complex series of winds and inflows and outflows, sometimes without good wind shear, a thunderstorm can choke itself to death. And it'll choke itself to death because air will rise, warm air will rise, it'll cool, it'll fall, and it'll choke off the inflow. It'll choke off the supply of warm air into the storm that keeps it going. So without good wind shear to blow that cold air away from the core, so it doesn't choke itself out. It's like a fire choking itself out. Without that wind shear, the storms will just kill themselves. But with good wind shear, it'll keep that cold air from choking itself out, and the storms can then form. So in this video, what you're going to see is towering cumulus. And the towering cumulus, you'll see, will start rising and bubbling up and clawing away at this invisible dry layer above until that layer is weakened enough for it to just explode. So it's 30 seconds long, and it should encompass everything I'm describing. So you can see the bubbling here. It's not going anywhere. The bubbling isn't rising. It's not going anywhere until at one point it'll make it up high enough. So it's tried again and it's failed. It's weakened and it's failed. It's over here now. So now we're getting much more. It's now kicking off. Now it's suddenly getting really dark. It's raining now. There's probably lightning and thunder kicking off all over the place. So we've gone from clear sky to this trying. There's a storm over here to the right of the video that's also trying, but it's not going anywhere until it's almost made it on that attempt to bubble up. But now it's made it just off screen, and now you're starting to see the anvil come across. And all of this bubbling up you see is called the it's called like the towering flank or something like that. Anyway, with that video, you see that these clouds throughout the day will just keep trying to claw away at that upper layer. And finally, when they can do it, you can go from clear sky to a thunderstorm in 15 minutes. And it is beautiful to watch. It's very slow to watch when you are storm chasing. The processes are really slow, and when you're watching, you don't really see much change. But if you have a video camera and you can video cam and record what you're seeing, and it plays it back in like a loop, so it shows you the last 30 seconds, and it speeds up the last 30 seconds, goes back 30 seconds, speeds it up to current time, and it does that continuously. And as old data that's older than 30 seconds gets deleted, it incorporates the new data, and it's constantly rolling. So you can look at the screen and go, yeah, there's definitely something going on there, because when you look with the naked eye, you don't really see much. You don't see much change. Isolated supercell and tornado, rainbow and lightning storm. So same thing here. Cumulus clouds, this is a cumulus field. So it's just a type of cloud.
Unstable atmosphere. A tornado watch is issued.
Picos Hank has got some great fucking videos. So if you want some tremendous tornado videos, this guy's channel is kicking off now. He's getting notoriety, so good on him. So you see here towering, it's bubbling up. It looks like cauliflower.
An isolated thunderstorm rises high into the atmosphere. Precipitation begins to fall.
So you just got rain shafts, the core of the storm, got updraft here. Look at all the instability, the broiling. I might mute the audio.
Indicated rotation.
So when you're looking at a storm like this is the mesocyclone. The mesocyclone is basically the area of the thunderstorm that's spinning. And when you're underneath it, you can just see sometimes that they'll create mothership shapes, bell shapes, like beautiful shapes. Sometimes the rotation isn't that obvious to the naked eye, but if you had that camera again that recorded the last 30 seconds and sped it up, then you see the rotation. Like it's obvious. So I'm going to mute the audio. And you can see the spinning, the rising air, things churning. There's left to right motion. Now you've got a funnel cloud that's spinning. And this is all because of the mesocyclone. And the mesocyclone extends all the way up to the top of the thunderstorm. It's not just the bottom. The tornado will be from the bottom of the thunderstorm all the way up to the very, very top. So it looks beautiful to look at, in my opinion. But I like thunderstorms at night as well, especially at dusk when you get the sunset on them, and they're like really pretty photographs, really gorgeous to look at. If you ever do have the opportunity one day to sign up to a storm chaser who will take you out and get you to thunderstorms, do it. They will keep you safe. If they didn't, you could sue the F out of them. But beautiful, beautiful stuff. Now, thunderstorms aren't the only type of storms. You have hurricanes. The interesting thing about hurricanes is that you can get tornadoes within hurricanes. And scientists were starting to suspect this a few decades ago, when the scientists will go up and survey the damage of tornadoes and hurricanes from the air, from helicopters, and they take aerial surveys of the damage. And with these hurricanes, they started noticing that certain areas of the damage was far more severe in one area compared to the whole. and they were confused, like, why is this neighborhood completely destroyed where everywhere else there's just minor damage? And scientists realized that you can get thunderstorms within a hurricane. That's a hurricane essentially is just a very large, organized group of thunderstorms, and they all circle around the eye. So, hurricane eye. So, the most intense thunderstorms you see here, all of this bubbling up here that you see, like the cauliflower, these are all towering thunderstorms around the eye of the storm. The most intense thunderstorms are around the eye. And the eye goes through many cycles called eye wall replacement cycles, where a severe storm will lose, or a severe hurricane will lose its eye for a while. Hurricane eye wall replacement cycle. And there will be videos of this occurring. Here we go. Sunday Science Tidbit. Hurricane eye wall replacement cycle. So you have a very clear eye, and then I'm hoping it will do it. It'll disappear, and it'll organize another eye. But this is not a very good example. It's better visually. Do you research all this, or you're just smart? It's stuff that I know. It's just stuff that I know. Yeah, I've got loads of books on it and stuff like that, even though I don't like reading. Incredible time-lapse footage of a supercell storm forming over blah, blah, blah. That's not what we want. Let's do hurricane eye wall replacement cycle again and see if we can find a video. Right, it's got a Wikipedia page. Concentric eye wall circles, blah 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 blah. Sometimes the center of the hurricane will become messy prior to intensification, and then all of a sudden the eye wall will come back, and it will do this many times. Am I just smart? I don't think I'm smart. I think I'm just nerdy. What is an eye wall replacement cycle? A feature of significant hurricanes is the eye wall replacement cycle. Basically, what occurs, a new eye begins to develop around the old eye. The new eye gradually decreases in diameter and replaces the old eye. And the old eye will just sort of cloud the middle for a bit until the new one takes over. It's interesting. But yeah, anyway, you get thunderstorms embedded in these eye walls and the outer bands, hurricane outer bands. Hurricane outer bands are a bit like the Milky Way's the arms in the Milky Way sort of thing. It's just need to find you a decent example of things like, that's not a very big picture, is it? Pictures are quite small. Here's a bit better, I guess. If I zoom in, so this is a hurricane seemingly heading for Jacksonville, Florida. You got the eye wall here that's very dirty, you can't really see it. But you've got these areas of orange and red. These are the bands of the hurricane that spiral inwards, and these tiny thunderstorms in the bands can produce tornadoes because they basically adopt the rotation of the hurricane. They adopt it, the overall rotation, and then they intensify it into a tornado, which is basically what supercells do. They are a smaller area of rotation than a hurricane, but a large scale in scale to everything else. And then through certain mechanisms, they tighten that rotation until a tornado forms. So tornadoes can form in hurricanes, and certain areas can see more damage than others because of them. But you have 5 categories of hurricanes, just like you have 5 categories of tornado. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Category 5 is the strongest. They consider a category 3 major. So categories 1, 1 and 2 are just hurricanes. 3, 4, and 5 are major. Obviously 5 being the deadliest. I can't remember the last time America had a last category 5 hurricane was. List of category 5 hurricanes in the Atlantic. The last one was Lorenzo, apparently. Hurricane Lorenzo in 2019, and it only lasted 3 hours at category 5, so it didn't last very long. Dorian lasted 1 day, 6 hours. Ivan in 2004 lasted 2 days and 12 hours. You would have heard of Katrina. She was a category 5 for 18 hours when she hit Louisiana. One of the most deadly hurricanes, I believe, in history, because it just tore through Louisiana, low-lying. No, I don't think they had much in the way of sea defenses. Excuse me while I eat my lunch. The Pacific call them typhoons. So you can have the Pacific typhoon season, which you can see I've already searched. So far, they have had 4 storms. 2 of them have been typhoons, and 1 of them has been a category 4 already. So a week after the season started, they've already had 1 from the top. So, quick start. The Atlantic hurricane season, I think, has started off kind of slowly. So Atlantic hurricane season. We'll put in 2022. 2022 hurricane season. So far, they've had 3 storms, 3 tropical storms. The last one was July the 2nd to July the 3rd, but nothing since then. Usually the Atlantic starts heating up over August and September. What am I having for lunch? I am having hash browns, chips, and chicken tikka slices. I'm not having a roast or anything like that. That would be lovely, but not today. I think the Aussies call them. I think the Aussies call them cyclones. 2022 cyclone season. Tropical cyclones. I think they are called tropical cyclones by the Aussies in the Indian Ocean, I think. They've already had a few storms. They have these interactive maps which show. This is a very high detailed map that show you all these little squiggles are all of the paths so far of Pacific and Indian Ocean cyclones. Interesting. What other storms are there? There's monsoons, obviously. This sort of thing goes on in India, the Indian monsoon season, which is just the rainy season, when wind patterns push head more northerly across India, and the rains start. That's something they wait for every year. What other storms are there? We've gone through thunderstorms, hurricanes, typhoons, cyclones, the monsoon season. Am I missing some? I'm sure I'm missing some. What other storms are there? Well, we've obviously got electrical storms, but you get those from thunderstorms. Some supercells can be non-tornadic, meaning that the conditions aren't favourable for tornado development, but they can still produce large hail. So in the US, they'll just say it's a non-tornadic storm, but it's a hail producer. And some of the conditions that are favourable for hail are completely different to what tornadoes. So they can forecast that there'll be hail producers. You can have things called I can't remember how they pronounce it, a derecho. Which is very similar to a squall line. It's usually a thunderstorm or supercell that intensifies and then bows out in the shape of a bow and then produces a lot of straight line winds. I can't remember how you pronounce it, like derecho, derecho. It means straight. So it's just, yeah, straight line winds. So you start off with a supercell, relatively circular, and then that'll start bowing in on itself, and then it'll spread outwards into a long bow shape and produce a lot of rain and straight line winds. Let's have a look at some photographs of tornado. Low precipitation, which basically means there's not much rain. You can have low precipitation supercells, short and abbreviated LP. An LP, basically, there'll be little rain, so you can get some fantastic photographs of tornadoes during low precipitation storms. So here we have a low precipitation supercell that's produced a tornado, but there's no rain about, so there's a little bit of rain, but it's an unobstructed view, so it's very beautiful. You can have things like this. So you can see the structure. This is the mesocyclone, and it's corkscrewing all the way up into the storm. This would be the core of the storm here, over to the right, where all the hail and rain would be, but there's nothing. So you get an unobstructed view of the storm's structure. And it's this sort of structure that people say is like motherships. Mothership. There should be a time lapse. Time lapse LP supercell. There should be. This one from 2021. Here we go. There's no rain or anything like that, but the same processes are going on. There's a lot of inflow and updraft. It's circling around. You can see the corkscrewing motion spinning around as it gets higher. That's the mesocyclone. You see the lightning kicking off. Beautiful. It's almost as beautiful as newborn baby. Some might disagree. I know I would. Comparing a crying, whinging baby with this beautiful thing. Yeah, beautiful. That's a time lapse of a low precipitation, abbreviated LP supercell. Just to show you some lightning. To talk about lightning, I've almost been struck by lightning twice. The first time was in Florida. I was young and brave and handsome. I was on holiday in Florida, and I'd met a friend called Philip, but it's short for Peely, and his family, African American. I met him playing basketball. I was on the basketball court just chilling by myself, and I decided to make a throw from the halfway line, and it went straight through the net, swish. Didn't even touch the sides. And everybody else that was playing turned around and saw me do it, and they were like, "Do that again. See if you can do that again." I bounced the ball a few times, and I did it a second time. And they're like, "Oh my god, you're amazing! Why aren't you in the NBA?" I'm 4 foot. Why would I be in the NBA? Long story short, became his friend and hung around with him. His family invited me out to a meal, to a steakhouse. They were going to go for dinner, steakhouse. So get into their van, and we people can. We drive to the steakhouse, and on the way, the weather rolls in, and this big black blanket of cloud starts coming over the city, Orlando. The sun's threatening to set, and we can see this thunderstorm is lit up on the horizon by this orange light, and we can see just how pitch black it is, and with orange highlights. We get out of the camper van, about to head on over to the steakhouse, and a lightning strike struck right next to us, the lamppost right next to us, less than 20 feet away. Was there thunder? No. What did it sound like? It sounded like a snap. It was like, whoosh. That's all it sounded like. But the sound of that snap echoed as it got higher and higher and higher in the sky. And it sounded like if you get a t-shirt and you slowly start ripping that t-shirt, that's what it sounded like, as it just buzzed its way up higher and higher and higher until we couldn't hear it anymore. Someone ripping a t-shirt. So we were too close to the sonic boom at that point for us to hear it. We just heard the snap. And lightning is a sonic boom caused by... thunder is a sonic boom caused by lightning. When lightning heats up the atmosphere to the temperature of the sun, the surface of the sun, I believe. So it heats up the air incredibly quickly, and that sudden expansion of air creates a sonic boom, and that sonic boom is audible as thunder. Now, lightning, when you hear thunder, usually the lightning you hear is from a negative lightning strike. And you remember me talking to you about negative and positive lightning? The differences between the two? Well, if I show you something or draw you something, it'll make sense to you. So you imagine, I'm going to draw the ground for you. So here we have the ground. Actually, I want to change pen because that's a horrible pen. There we go. There's the ground. Let's get some sky up. Let's get some sky in this. Here we go. Now, nice blue sky. It gets lighter towards the horizon, so I'm going to make this look good, guys. Come on. 10%. Yeah, right. Whoops. Gets lighter towards the horizon. Here we go. There, this is our lovely sky. So now we have a thunderstorm, which I'm going to do as, well, a black, a grey cloud. Here we go. That's our thunderstorm. We'll do it like that. Okay. Let's get a bit of shading on this because I'm a bit of a perfectionist, and well, sod you all. We'll get some shading on this. There we go. So when we get a lightning strike, usually a negative lightning strike has something called a stepped leader, and the stepped leader has been photographed with high-speed cameras. I want to show you what that stepped leader looks like. So so you can see what goes on. So lightning strike step leader. Here we go. Lightning strike at 103,000 frames per second by the slow-mo guys. So
three separate forks of
you see,
it's almost like three different bits of light. Only one of them became real. It's so bright.
here we go.
That one has a little extra view.
They're not doing this particularly slowly.
Twin strike. I actually involved with somewhere else, but that is the side bolt. That is like the side view.
There you go.
Look at the speed on that. It's like
Let's do it in slow motion.
it's like video game lightning. Yeah. It's like way slow.
What is happening there is every 50 feet, the channel of lightning sends out a leader, the step leader, that jumps about 50 feet per microsecond. And it jumps 50 feet because it's finding a channel through the atmosphere that is the path of least resistance. And that's what it's doing. It's finding the path of least resistance through the atmosphere. Once it comes into contact with something, the connection is made, and you get a lightning strike. So let's say that's our lightning strike, but also, because it's a step leader, it's branching off in other directions as well, trying to look for lightning. So you get something that resembles something like this. Oops, and you get something that looks like this. It's trying to fork its way down to the ground, like so. You get a lightning strike that may look something like this. So when the lightning strike, the return stroke, they think is at the speed of light. The return stroke is that sudden bright flash of lightning that you see. But before that, the step leader is working its way through the ionized atmosphere, through the path of least resistance, ionizing the air. And then the return stroke sends a current of electricity through that ionized path, and then you see the flash of lightning and flicker. But because negative lightning has a lot of these branches, you have a lot of areas where there'll be sonic boom. So if you're stood, say I'm going to draw a person over here. So you're stood over here. Right, hold on. Let me draw a person. So come on. That's a clone stamp, my bad. So you're stood over here. So this is you. Stood over here, just looking at the lightning. This is you. All the way over here. The lightning, the different areas of the lightning will start hitting you. The sound waves from the shock waves will start hitting you first. The closest parts will start hitting you first. So you'll start hearing this part first, and you'll hear thunder. Okay? And then the parts slightly behind that here, you'll start hearing afterwards, and that'll travel out and hit you. And up here will travel out and hit you. And then this branch far away will travel out and hit you too. But they're all coming at different times, dirty bastards. They're all coming at different times. So the sense you get is a rumble of thunder, because different parts of the lightning channel are arriving at you at different times. Sometimes, though, that's lightning, negative lightning. Sometimes you have positive lightning, and positive lightning looks very different to negative lightning because it'll look something like that. Positive lightning tends to be very straight. It doesn't fork out at different angles or anything like that. It's just a straight line, and I'll show you a picture of it. Positive lightning. What you'll see is it forks less. Here you go, here's one. It forks less. And it meanders less. And because of that, you get, see, here's another one. It meanders less, so you get all of the lightning, all of the thunder at exactly the same, well, almost at exactly the same time. So you'll get something like this. And that's, so you get the entire channel hit you all at once, pretty much, because it's so close to you in relation to the other parts of the lightning strikes that could be miles apart. They could, because lightning can be, 10, 20, 30, 100 miles long, and it'll meander over the sky. But a positive lightning strike is just contained in one channel. So usually you'll just hear a cannonball get fired. It's the whole lightning strike that you can see. The thunder from it hits you all at once. So you just get boom. And those are the ones that set off car alarms and can shake the house and your body. And you'll hear that just, it sounds like it folds the atmosphere. It's lovely. It's a lovely to hear. I mean, there probably aren't any YouTube videos of positive lightning, and they wouldn't do you justice anyway, because if you're listening to the sound with crappy headphones that don't do much bass, you won't get the full effect, and it'll just be like, that just sounds crap. So I'll save you the pain. But that's that. That's positive light. The term bolt from a blue, which is this photograph here, is that sometimes a lightning strike can extend so far away from the thunderstorm that you can be hit in blue sky. There has been stories where people have been hit from a bolt from the blue. That's where the saying comes from. Other things here that you can have a look at. What was it? I was going to show you something here, but I can't find it. Where was it? Oh yes, here. This is an upward lightning strike. Occasionally, you can have lightning that originates from the top of tall buildings, and the lightning strike goes upwards. I've never seen it, personally, but you can have lightning that goes up. Here's another video by Storm showing upward lightning. Usually from tall buildings, so there's some masts down here. Here we go. Bam! Ever seen that before? Huh? Have you? Here's another question I hear quite a lot. Where are you safe during a lightning storm? Well, usually you're pretty safe in your house. Usually. But there have been instances where lightning can strike your house, and if you're on the telephone at the time, the landline, during the lightning being grounded, electricity can run through the telephone lines, out through the phone, into your ear, and down through your body, and just fry your brain. So sleep well tonight, sleep well. But usually, in a thunderstorm or a lightning storm, your car is the safest place. And people think, it's because of the rubber tyres. No. Yes, rubber tyres can act as insulation, but that's not the reason why cars are safe. Cars are safe due to a phenomenon called the Faraday cage effect. Faraday created a cage, a metallic cage, where he fired sparks of electricity at the cage at people inside, and the people inside were unaffected. The reason for this is electricity takes the path of least resistance. So rather than the electricity working its way through the metal, then through the non-conductive air towards you, and then through you and your body, which is not the path of least resistance. The path of least resistance is for the electricity to go along the skin of the metal, on the very outside of the metal, to ground. So everybody inside a Faraday cage is safe because the electricity is channeled away from you. And cars are essentially just Faraday cages. So you're pretty safe from a lightning strike, and a lot of people's cars get struck and the occupants are fine. So, what else is there? What sort of weather do you like, Senade? I'll try and think of something. We've covered gorilla hail, which is just huge hail. Oh, did I mute? How long has it been muted for? Hopefully it hasn't been muted for very long. Water spouts are not tornadoes. When a water spout goes over land, it is not a tornado. A tornado is a vortex produced by a thunderstorm, by definition. A water spout over land then becomes a land spout. The amount of people that I've seen, it's a tornado. It's not. If the circulation was attached to the base of a thunderstorm, then I would say yes, a tornado. If it's not, then no. Dust devils can look quite mean sometimes. Some dust devils can look quite large. But yeah, pretty harmless really. A water spout, probably a little bit more dangerous. You've never heard of a water spout? Water spouts usually occur just off the shore, with the warm water just off the shoreline. Warm surface air rising. Pretty to look at. Huge waterspout appears off the coast of Italy near Rome. If that's a thunderstorm, then it could be a tornado. Biggest waterspout we've ever seen. Where's that? Oh, here. Pretty big. Scary though. I wouldn't want to drive into it, you know. I wouldn't want to go, hey, white knuckle riding into it. Yeah, pretty cool. We missed a hurricane by we tried flying out to Florida before as hurricanes were on their way, but the nature of the beast is when you book out 2 weeks hoping to get a tornado, hoping to get a hurricane to coincide with your holiday, you don't get any hurricanes. And then when you were like, well, let's go on holiday, and then you decide not to, and that period of time when you would have been there is when there's a hurricane. That always happens. Sod's law. Yeah, of course I wanted one. Yeah. I want to sit in it. Watch it come on shore. Storm surge. You know, feel the power of Mother Nature. Not just crappy rain. Ugh. Yeah, it would be so cool to just chill out. Well, I suppose I wouldn't be chill. I'd be too excited. Anyone that knows me knows that I get really hyperactive and excited when there are thunderstorms about. I'd be beside myself if there was a hurricane coming. I'd be like, yay. But we were talking about global warming yesterday and climate change. These sorts of severe weather events and severe thunderstorms, supercells, and stuff like that, they would just become more and more common. You went to the Caribbean when you were younger and there was a huge storm. I was terrified in case a hurricane was coming. Ah, you big wet blanket. I would love to see a hurricane. I would love to sit in a hurricane and just experience it. Tick that off my bucket list. I've seen a tornado, but not a fully fledged tornado. It didn't come all the way down to the ground. It was just a funnel. We'd missed the tornado that came through Oklahoma by 3 days. But one day I will go back. One day as a streamer, I'm going to go back, stream it live. Streamer chases tornadoes, bang. I mean bang as in like, that's it, rather than bang, I've just been hit and I'm dead. That'd be so cool. What else? Just finishing my lunch. It's only taken me 3 hours to finish it. Jesus. What else? What other storms? Not just rain. There are anvil crawlers. It's a type of lightning strike that you'll see come out the base of a cloud and sort of work its way along the base and finger and flicker its way across the base of the thunderstorm. And I'll try to show you a video of these. They are so impressive. They cover huge areas. Like that. Even better than that, though. It just flickers. It's all the way. And I've seen some amazing ones. They go from horizon to horizon. It does, doesn't it? It's when there's so much energy in the atmosphere. You can have thunderstorms in the United States which have 10, 20, 30 or more lightning strikes per minute. Pecos Hank is a YouTuber. Pecos Hank, Pecos space HANK. Pecos Hank has a video of a lightning storm. I'm going to watch it. Pecos Hank lightning storm. And I believe one of these videos, he just sits behind, he'll have the video behind him, the camera pointed behind him. Do you know the colour of the sky just tells you what the temperature of the sky? When it's orange, sort of pinky oranges and stuff like that, it's because the temperature is really warm. And when it's really cold, you get like blues and purples and things like that. So this is Pecos Hank watching a lightning storm. Now, in the UK, we did have a thunderstorm like this once. All of this bubbly stuff you see up here, this is Mammatus. Mammatus is essentially it's basically the updraft. When the updraft has gone all the way up and hit the stratosphere, it can't go above that, so it levels out. And then you get it fanning out, which is the anvil. Thunderstorm anvil, which is this. I'll get that space picture here. Here we go. That's the anvil. So the updraft is moved up and it hits the stratosphere, the border between the troposphere and the stratosphere. And all weather on Earth happens in the troposphere. It hits the top and then it just fans out in either direction, and that's the classic anvil you look. Sometimes in this photograph, for example, you have something called the overshooting top, which is parts of the thunderstorm that are pushing into the stratosphere because the updraft is so intense, so strong that it punches into an area where weather isn't a thing. And you can get little bulges at the top. When you see those little bulges at the top of these thunderstorms, you know. See, here we go. Here's an example. Overshooting top. And, you know it's really strong. Really. Here we go. Overshooting top again. What was I going to show you? Oh, yeah, the lightning. And the mammatus is basically the updraft sinking after it's gone into the anvil. Here we go. Let's enlarge this. Just look how much lightning there is. Constant flickering all the time. It does, doesn't it? I love thunderstorms at night. Whenever I know there's a thunderstorm about, I wake up and I watch it. Unless I'm really sleepy. So cool. I would just... Ugh. I'd be in heaven. Not that I believe in heaven, but if I did, it'd probably have a lot of thunderstorms. To be honest. Right. Does anyone want to play some games with me? I'm going to wrap this podcast up. The 2-hour mark. That's a pretty good podcast. 2 hours long. Talking about the weather. I didn't cover everything. Because I go off on tangents and rants, and I sometimes forget my train of thought. But there's a lot more to the weather. But I like severe weather. I like stuff that is wow. I like the biggest, the strongest, the fastest, the loudest, not just average. So we're looking at thunderstorms, supercells, derechos, squall lines, tornadoes, cyclones, typhoons, hurricanes, everything to do with the weather, snowstorms, thunder snow, where you can have a thunderstorm, but it's snowing. And sometimes it can snow so heavy and not even be from a thunderstorm that the snow can basically bounce and rub up against one another, much like ice particles in a thunderstorm do, create enough static electricity in the snow that's falling to create a lightning strike, not in a thunderstorm. And Jim Cantori experienced this. Jim Cantori. Thunder snow. Hey, look, there we go. It's the first thing that comes up. Jim Cantori with the Weather Channel. And I'm muting it so I don't get done. But look at him. He's in a snowstorm. His goggles have frozen up. He's got ice on his nose. He's got ice on his beard. And then he just experiences a thunder snow, and then he's like over the moon about it because it's really rare. It's like, yeah, hailstones. Hailstones are just frozen droplets of water. Usually when an updraft fails, collapses, or the updraft can no longer lift and keep something aloft because it becomes too heavy, will then fall down to the earth as hail. It's usually water and water vapor that starts to freeze. They bang up against one another and they form, they coalesce and form raindrops. Those raindrops can freeze into tiny little bits of ice. That ice can then bounce up against other bits of ice and they collect together to make slightly larger hail. And then they reach a threshold where the hail becomes too heavy for the air that's rising to keep it floated. You know when you have like a Malteser and you put a Malteser on your lips and you lean back and you blow the Malteser, you keep the Malteser floating in the air? It's like that. The updraft is keeping the hailstones aloft. Now, sometimes the storm can die and the updraft stop. And that sudden updraft stopping causes all of those hailstones to then fall down at once. That's one way of hailstones dropping. The second is the hailstones become too large for the updraft to keep aloft, and then they fall. And that's what hail is. And in America, you have things called gorilla hail, which I went over earlier. And gorilla hail is like our hail, but on steroids. That's on steroids. So, look at this hail. Imagine that for a hailstone that falls on you at 90 miles an hour and hits you on the head. Donk. Reed Timmer is here. This is Reed Timmer. That's his car smashed to high heaven because of the hail. Hailstone punching through a house. Huge. It'll kill you. We got someone here. Have a look. Holding some of these hailstones. So they can be a few inches to... You say ow when a normal hailstone hits you. You big girl. But it is painful, especially if it's windy. They sting. It's like being blasted with sandpaper. But yeah. I think Reed Timmer is the one that calls it gorilla hail. Here we've got Reed Timmer. I see now that every car in Norman looks like mine. Just dented. Look at the size of these, though. Imagine that. Someone's fist of ice. Just falling down. Saeed Tabatabal Mud. Look at the size of that. Like 2.5 inches, 3. Oh my god, look at you. It's like a heart shape. It wouldn't harm a fly. This heart shape. The fuck. You are funny. That's like a heart shape. God. What one were you looking at that was a heart shape that I didn't even notice? Which one was it? That one. Oh yeah. It does look like a human heart, doesn't it? Yeah. Or were you thinking of like the that sort of shape? Look how much of a perfectionist I am to make a nice heart shape. Some people like that. Heart shape, bro. Yeah. Yeah. Hey, look, it's a club. You take the shape down the bottom, and then this. It's like the playing cards. You see the same? No, you don't. Shh. Where's the ace of clubs? I've got cards here. I'm not a gambler. See, that sort of shape. Right, let me put these cards away. My pride and joy. I've asked to see whether or not I can be fast-tracked into Wild RP. I'm going to read this in private. Right. I was asking if I could get fast-tracked, and they said no. So that's fair enough. Right. That's the end of the... I believe that's going to be the end of the podcast for today. That's 2 hours long. I think 2 hours is pretty solid number for a podcast. Remember, you are more than welcome to join Discord. You're more than welcome to jump in. Here's some links for you if you want to click on some links. Discord completely free, Twitch completely free, everything's completely free, don't need to pay. The games that we play of an evening are completely free. If you do have access to paid games, then by all means you can recommend some games that cost money to play that you enjoy, and we can jump into some of those. That link tree will give you access to the stream, the Discord, the YouTube, Twitter, Reddit, and Instagram. Some are used more than others. Reddit is just getting started. If you want to join the Reddit, you can either post content that you want to see in the Reddit. Discord is also another place that you can post to see, see to post, whatever. And you'll have people on here that all have their own mental battles or want to support people with mental battles. It's all good.